The hospital corridor smelled faintly of antiseptic and loneliness. Under the dim fluorescent lights, a young nurse named Emily Carter walked slowly toward room 304, the room that had, for almost 6 months, become the quiet center of her world. Inside that room lay a man who hadn't spoken, moved, or opened his eyes in half a year, Mr. Adrian Blackwell, a millionaire businessman whose name once appeared in magazines and business journals, now reduced to a fragile body kept alive by machines. Every day, Emily would enter the room, pull the blinds open just enough to let sunlight in, and whisper, "Good morning, Mr. Blackwell. It's another day." She didn't know why she spoke to him as if he could hear her, but it made her feel human, like there was still hope. She had been assigned to his care after his family withdrew most of their visits. The man who once commanded boardrooms, who had hundreds of employees and friends, was now just another silent patient, abandoned by those who once called him powerful. But Emily saw him differently. To her, he wasn't a millionaire. He was a human being trapped in silence, fighting unseen battles in a world between life and death. Yellow heart, if you believe in kindness, miracles, and second chances, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us spread stories of hope and humanity. Yellow heart. Emily wasn't like most nurses. She had joined the profession not for money or prestige, but because she had seen pain up close. She grew up in poverty, raised by a mother who worked double shifts to keep food on the table. Her father had died of a heart attack when she was 10 because they couldn't afford proper treatment. Since then, Emily had promised herself she'd never let anyone suffer alone the way her father did. Maybe that's why she couldn't treat Mr. Blackwell as just another patient. Every day, she would talk to him, telling him about her shift, about the weather, about the small joys of her day. Sometimes, she even read to him from his favorite books, which she found on the shelf his assistant had brought from his mansion. And every other day, she carefully bathed him, a slow, delicate process that wasn't just about hygiene, but dignity. She'd wipe away the sweat from his forehead, change his hospital gown, and gently wash his arms as though he could feel every touch. "You're not alone, Mr. Blackwell," she would whisper softly. "You're safe here." It wasn't easy. Her colleagues often laughed at her for being too attached. Some said, "Emily, he's gone. He'll never wake up." But Emily refused to believe that. There was something about his face, the faint warmth in his skin, that told her his soul was still fighting. Weeks turned into months. Her own life was crumbling quietly. Her rent was overdue, her mother's medication bills were piling up, and she was often too exhausted to eat dinner. But she never let her personal struggles affect her care for Adrian. The hospital staff began to notice that his health was slowly stabilizing, his heart rate was stronger, his breathing more consistent. They credited the medical team, but Emily secretly believed it was the power of human touch and compassion. One stormy night, while thunder rumbled across the sky, the power flickered in the hospital. Emily was on her night shift again, alone in room 304. Rain battered against the windows as she sat beside Adrian's bed, humming softly. She took a damp cloth, wiping his face with care, whispering words only a soul could hear. "You've been asleep too long," she said, her voice trembling. "There's still beauty left in this world, Mr. Blackwell. You just have to open your eyes to see it." At that very moment, a faint sound escaped his throat, a low, almost imperceptible moan. Emily froze. The monitor beside her began to beep erratically. She leaned closer, heart pounding, and saw his fingers twitch slightly. "Doctor," she screamed, rushing into the hallway. Nurses and doctors stormed in, surrounding the bed. The air was electric with disbelief as Adrian Blackwell's eyelids fluttered open for the first time in 188 days. When his eyes met Emily's, she felt a shock run through her chest, not fear, but something deeper. His gaze was weak, confused, but there was recognition. He blinked, trying to speak, his voice a fragile whisper. "Where am I?" The room fell silent. Emily's tears flowed uncontrollably as she held his trembling hand. "You're in the hospital," she said softly. "You've been in a coma, Mr. Blackwell. But you're safe now." Days later, the miracle became the talk of the hospital. The man who had been declared unlikely to recover was now awake, speaking, slowly regaining strength. But what astonished everyone wasn't just his recovery, it was how he changed afterward. Adrian Blackwell, once known as a ruthless tycoon, began asking for the young nurse who never gave up on him. As he recovered, Emily continued her daily visits, though now she sat beside a man who was no longer silent. He asked her about the days she spent caring for him, about what she had said when she thought he couldn't hear. She blushed, unsure what to say. Finally, she admitted, "I talked to you like you were still there because I believed you could hear me. I couldn't let you feel alone." Adrian was silent for a long moment. Then, tears welled in his eyes, something no one had ever seen from him before. "I did hear you," he whispered. "Not the words, maybe, but I felt something. It was like someone was holding me in the dark, telling me not to let go. You saved me, Emily. Not just my body, my soul." Emily didn't know how to respond. She had seen patients recover before, but this felt different. Every day, Adrian grew stronger, but also gentler. The man who once measured life in profits now found joy in small things, the sunlight filtering through the blinds, the taste of warm soup, the sound of laughter. He asked Emily about her dreams, her family, her struggles. When she told him about her mother's illness, he listened in silence. A few days later, without a word, he paid for her mother's surgery anonymously. Emily found out only when the hospital called to say the bill had been covered. She knew who had done it, and her heart overflowed with gratitude. When she confronted Adrian about it, he smiled faintly. "You gave me my life back, Emily. I just returned a fraction of what I owe you." As the weeks turned into months, their bond deepened, not in the way movies describe love, but in a quieter, purer way. Emily saw the world through compassion, Adrian learned to see it through her eyes. He started a new foundation in the hospital's name, dedicated to helping comatose patients and funding their care, naming it the Second Chance Foundation. But fate had one more test waiting. One evening, as Emily was preparing his medication, Adrian began coughing violently. Panic erupted. His body, still frail from months of inactivity, was fighting an infection. For 2 days, he hovered on the edge again. Emily barely slept, sitting by his side, holding his hand just like before, whispering the same words she'd said months ago, "You're not alone. You're safe." And once again, miraculously, he pulled through. When he opened his eyes, his first words were, "You stayed again." She smiled through tears. "Always." From that day on, Adrian refused to return to his mansion. Instead, he donated it to serve as a rehabilitation center for coma patients. He moved into a modest apartment near the hospital and continued to support Emily's dream, to become a senior nurse and build a program that trained others to care with empathy, not just efficiency. The media soon caught wind of his transformation. Reporters wanted interviews, magazines wanted stories, but Adrian refused to take credit. "The real miracle," he told them, "is not that I woke up. It's that someone cared enough to believe I could." Months later, on the anniversary of his recovery, the hospital held a small ceremony. Adrian stood beside Emily, his eyes glistening with emotion as he handed her a small envelope. Inside was a letter offering her a scholarship to study advanced nursing care abroad, fully funded. "You've spent your life giving to others," he said softly. "It's time someone gave you a chance to fly." Emily couldn't stop crying. She hugged him, a long, quiet embrace that spoke more than words ever could. Sparkling Heart, if this story has touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us bring more real, emotional stories of hope and humanity to light. Sparkling Heart. Before the video ends, Please comment below and tell us, do you believe that kindness can heal even the deepest wounds? As the years passed, Emily became one of the most respected nurses in her field, training others around the world. And Adrian, though his body remained fragile, lived his final years in peace, surrounded not by wealth or luxury, but by people who truly cared. When he eventually passed away quietly in his sleep, the letter he left behind was read at his funeral. It said, "Once, I thought money could buy everything. Then I met a nurse who bathed a broken man with compassion instead of fear. She taught me that love, simple, human love, is the greatest miracle of all. If you find someone like that in your life, never let them go. They are the hands of heaven on earth." Emily placed a single white rose on his grave that day. The wind whispered through the trees, and for a brief moment, she could almost hear his voice again, warm, grateful, and free. And as she walked away from the quiet hill, the sun broke through the clouds, lighting her path in gold, as if heaven itself was smiling at the miracle born from one nurse's kindness and one man's second chance at life.